Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive? This one takes us all the way back to 1998 in Pleasant Prairie, Wisconsin.
Ah, Wisconsin.
Yeah, picture a quiet suburb, the kind of place you see in movies.
Peaceful, right?
Exactly. And in this suburb lived Julie Jensen. Everything seemed perfect until it wasn't.
That's what makes this case so fascinating. Julie's found dead in her home, and initially, there's no clear cause.
So mysterious. No obvious signs of anything.
No, it's like a puzzle with missing pieces. Natural causes, suicide, or even foul play, all on the table.
Well, that's got to be tough for investigators.
Absolutely, it really is. And to complicate things further, Julie's friends and family were adamant that she would never take her own life.
They knew her best, right?
Yeah, exactly. They described her as a vibrant, involved mother who loved her family and her community.
So that testimony must have been crucial for the investigators.
Oh, absolutely. It helps to understand Julie's state of mind leading up to her death.
It's painting a picture of her life.
Exactly, who she was, not just how she died.
And as investigators dig deeper, things take a very dark turn. Julie and her husband, Mark, had been dealing with a stalker for years.
Imagine the toll that takes. That constant fear, always looking over your shoulder.
Yeah, hang-up calls, threatening emails, even pornography left around their home. It's terrifying.
It's psychological torture, really. And it makes you wonder, why didn't Julie go to the police sooner?
Well, Julie actually thought the stalker was a former coworker, someone she had a brief affair with years ago.
Interesting. So the initial focus is directed outward. Makes sense.
Right. But here's where it gets even crazier. The police find out that Mark, Julie's husband, is having an affair himself.
Hold on, so the husband's having an affair. That changes things.
Oh, yeah. Suddenly there's a motive, a reason to maybe want out of the marriage.
And the focus shifts right onto the husband. Makes you wonder what else they might find.
And they did. This was 1998, remember, so internet forensics were pretty new.
Right, the early days.
Yeah. But when they looked into Mark's computer activity, they found some incriminating searches. Poisons, assisted suicide, even the effects of antifreeze.
Wow, that's not good. Especially with those other details coming to light.
Right. And then the autopsy results came back. Remember how there was no clear cause of death at first?
Oh, yeah, that was a big mystery.
Well, the autopsy revealed Julie was poisoned with antifreeze. Antifreeze? Wait, wouldn't you taste that?
Well, antifreeze is actually sweet.
Sweet, really?
Yeah, it can be easily mistaken for accidental ingestion, which is partly why it's been used in homicide, sadly.
That's disturbing. But the story gets even wilder. Weeks before her death, Julie gave a sealed letter to a friend.
A letter, what was in it?
She told her friend to give it to the police if anything happened to her.
Wow, that's chilling. Talk about thinking ahead.
I know, right? Like she knew something was going to happen. Why not go straight to the police, though?
Maybe she was afraid of not being believed, or that things could get even worse. It's a tough situation.
So what exactly did she write in the letter?
Well, she talked about her growing fear, mentioned a strange shopping list Mark had made, syringes, razor blades, drugs, things that could easily be used to stage a suicide.
Oh my gosh, she was documenting everything.
Exactly. She even pointed out how healthy she was. No drinking, no smoking, almost like she was preemptively defending herself.
It's heartbreaking, but also incredibly smart. Like she was building a case from beyond the grave.
That letter offered a glimpse into the torment she was going through, almost like she was trying to protect herself, even if she wasn't around.
Powerful stuff. But even with this letter, it still took 8 years for Mark to be arrested and charged with Julie's murder.
Cases like these can be incredibly complex. Gathering evidence, interviewing witnesses, and navigating the legal system all takes time. It's a long road to justice.
8 years is a long time to wait for justice, especially when you have such a powerful piece of evidence like that letter.
I can't even imagine what Julie's loved ones must have gone through during that time. The pain, the uncertainty, it must have been agonizing.
So 8 years later, the trial finally begins. I'm guessing that letter played a big role in the prosecution's case. Did they read it aloud in court?
They did, and it must have been incredibly impactful. Hearing Julie's own words, her fears, her suspicions, it's hard to imagine anything more powerful.
I bet that sent chills down everyone's spine. What was the jury's verdict?
Guilty. Mark Jensen was found guilty of first-degree intentional homicide, sentenced to life in prison. It seemed like justice had finally been served, but as with many cases like this, the legal battle wasn't over yet.
Wait, what? He was found guilty. What happened?
The defense appealed the verdict, and this is where the complexities of the legal system really come into play. Remember that letter, the one Julie gave to her friend?
Of course. That chilling letter detailing her fears. How could I forget?
Well, the defense argued that the letter was inadmissible as hearsay evidence.
Hearsay. I'm not a lawyer. Can you explain that?
Sure, basically, hearsay is an out-of-court statement offered as evidence. And the problem was, Julie, the person who made the statement, couldn't be cross-examined.
Right, because she wasn't there.
Exactly. And the Sixth Amendment guarantees a defendant the right to confront their accuser. So even though the letter was incredibly compelling, it created a legal challenge.
So they couldn't use the letter as evidence, even though it felt so crucial to the case. So what happened next? Did they have to retry the whole case without the letter?
They did. And this time, the prosecution had to figure out how to prove Mark's guilt without relying on Julie's own words.
Wow, talk about a challenge. How did they do that? Did they find new evidence?
Well, remember those threatening emails Julie had been receiving?
Yeah.
The ones she thought were from that coworker.
Right, but this is where technology really comes into play. Remember the first trial was in 2002.
Early 2000s, yep.
So by the time the retrial rolled around in 2007, technology had advanced quite a bit.
Oh yeah, leaves some bounds.
They were able to take a fresh look at that computer evidence with all these new tools and techniques.
Exactly. It's amazing what a few years can do in terms of forensics.
So what did they find?
Well, they were able to link those emails back to Mark.
No way. He was framing someone else while tormenting his own wife.
It was a really twisted plan, trying to make Julie doubt her own sanity, set the stage to make her look unstable.
Chilling. To think someone could be so calculated, especially someone you love and trust.
It's a truly dark side of human nature.
But thankfully, technology caught up with him. So what about the retrial? Did they have any new witnesses besides those digital forensics experts?
They did, actually. A coworker of Mark's testified that he overheard Mark talking about wanting to kill Julie.
Whoa, hold on. He actually said that out loud.
Apparently, yeah. He even joked about ways to get away with it.
That's disturbing. It's one thing to have those thoughts, but to actually say them to someone else?
There's a real lack of remorse or empathy.
So what was Mark's defense this time? Surely he couldn't still claim Julie was suicidal after all that.
His defense team actually doubled down on that theory. They said Julie had framed him.
What? As an act of revenge?
Right. They tried to portray her as mentally unstable, driven to punish him for the affair.
That's a bold strategy considering the evidence. Did the jury buy it?
No, they didn't. They saw right through the manipulation. After deliberating for a while, they came back with another guilty verdict.
Wow, guilty again?
Yep. This time, Mark was sentenced to life in prison without parole.
Finally, some real justice for Julie after all those years. It's a relief to hear that.
Absolutely. But it's also a stark reminder of the devastating impact of domestic violence.
It really makes you think, why murder? Why not just get a divorce?
That's the question, isn't it? Was it greed, control? A deep-seated resentment? It's hard to say for sure what was going on in his mind.
We may never know the true answer, but his actions speak for themselves.
They do, and they serve as a warning sign for all of us, to be aware of the potential dangers that can lurk beneath the surface.
It's easy to get caught up in the legal details of a case like this, but I can't help but think about Julie. What kind of person was she beyond this tragedy?
From everything we know, Julie was a remarkable woman, a loving mother dedicated to her community and cherished by her friends.
It's tragic that her life was cut short in such a horrific way. And it's a reminder that domestic abuse can happen to anyone.
You're right, it doesn't discriminate. It's a hidden epidemic that affects people from all walks of life.
What advice would you give to someone listening who might be in a similar situation, feeling trapped or controlled?
The most important thing is to remember that you're not alone. There are resources available, people who want to help.
Like hotlines, shelters, or even trusted friends and family members.
Exactly. Reaching out is the first step towards safety and healing.
Those are powerful words. I hope anyone who needs to hear that is listening. This deep dive has been incredibly insightful, but it's also left me with a question. What would you have done if you were in Julie's shoes?
That's a tough one. Julie's story really highlights the importance of trusting your gut, seeking support, and taking action to protect yourself.
It's a reminder that silence can be deadly, and speaking out, even when it's hard, can be the first step towards a better life.
Absolutely. And it's a reminder that we all have a responsibility to look out for each other.
This case also shows how important it is to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to technology and criminal justice.
Absolutely. Imagine if this had happened before digital forensics were so advanced.
Mark might have gotten away with it.
It's a chilling thought.
Yeah.
But thankfully, technology is constantly evolving and helping to bring criminals to justice.
It's a constant game of cat and mouse. But in this case, technology ultimately helped to expose the truth and bring some measure of peace to Julie's loved ones.
And Julie's story, despite its tragic ending, offers a glimmer of hope. It shows that even in the darkest of times, the truth can prevail.
It's a testament to the resilience of those who loved her, the dedication of law enforcement, and the importance of never giving up on the pursuit of justice.
And perhaps most importantly, it serves as a reminder to be vigilant, to trust our instincts, and to speak out against injustice in all its forms.
Powerful words. Julie's voice may have been silenced, but her story continues to resonate, and that's a testament to the enduring power of truth. You know, it's wild to think that even after 2 trials and all that evidence, Mark Jensen still claimed he was innocent.
It's a classic defense tactic, right? Try to shift the blame, make the victim look bad.
Yeah, like he was trying to rewrite history. But he even went so far as to say Julie was suicidal and framed him for her own death.
Trying to plant those seeds of doubt, make people question her mental state?
So manipulative. But the jury didn't believe him, did they?
Not at all. They saw through it all. There was no real proof that Julie was suicidal. Everyone who knew her testified about how much she loved life, how dedicated she was to her kids.
It really speaks to her strength that even facing all that darkness, she still had so much light.
It does. It shows how determined she was to live a full life.
Mark might have taken her life, but he couldn't crush her spirit.
And that's what's so powerful about her story. The truth won out in the end.
It's a message of hope and resilience. And accountability, too.
Mm.
Julie's case shows us that we can't let these things slide. We have to fight for justice, for ourselves and for others.
Absolutely. We have to speak out against abuse, support those who are hurting, and hold those responsible accountable for their actions.
Well said. This deep dive has been really eye-opening. But it also makes you think, what would you have done if you were Julie, knowing what she knew?
That's a heavy question. It makes you realize how important it is to trust your instincts.
Yeah, and to get help when you need it,
Yeah.
reach out to someone.
Exactly. Don't suffer in silence. Speaking up is the first step towards healing.
It was scary to think about,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes silence can be deadly. This case really drives that home. We have to listen to each other, believe survivors, and work to stop these kinds of things from happening.
We all have a role to play in making the world safer, that's for sure.
Well, this has been an incredibly powerful deep dive. I want to thank you for sharing your expertise and insights with us.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And for our listeners, if you want to learn more about this case, we've included some links in the show notes. There you'll also find resources for anyone who might be struggling with domestic abuse. Remember, you're not alone, and there is help available.
Please reach out if you need it. There are people who care.
That's right. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll be back soon with another captivating true crime story. Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe.